Today we're going to be talking about evaluation of sources and evaluation of information. How does this relate to your assignment? So as you're working on your assignment, you'll be answering questions about the evaluation of sources. In the assignment, you're going to be asked to choose among sources, and you can use the internet to look at the websites or look at books and determine the content. When answering the questions, you'll be expected to make a choice and then explain your reasoning. Make sure to consider the information included in the video. Those are the aspects that you should be thinking about before using a source. What is evaluation of sources or information? When you need information for your personal life or if you're doing research, you're going to find tons of information out there. There's going to be books, there's going to be articles, there's going to be websites. And before you use any information in a paper, you must determine whether or not it's appropriate for your assignment. Not everything you find is going to be usable. These are the steps that are going to help you determine whether or not a source should be used in your assignment to answer, or even to answer a question in your personal life. How do you begin evaluating information? So one of the first things you're going to look at is currency. You're going to make sure that source is current. Check the date on it. If you're doing something that's medical related, remember you're not going to use anything that's older than 5 years. If the topic you're doing is historical in nature, then it's okay if things are a little bit older, but you're not going to want to go totally really old stuff, even if your topic is historical in nature. You're going to try to figure out where you're going to find the publication information. So for this particular example here, this was found on our Academic OneFile database. You can see the publication date is right here. So for books and journals, you're going to look at the title page if they're physical. This information might also be located on the reverse of the title page. For web pages, you're going to look for the phrase last updated. This is usually located at the bottom of your page, and it's very important that you locate this because in order to do a correct citation for your works cited page, you're really going to have the date that something was published and or last updated if it is online. Relevance. You're going to have to determine whether this particular source answers your research question. Is it relevant to the topic that you are researching? And also, does it meet the standards set by your professor? Many times, professors will say to their students, well, for this assignment, I want you to use scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. What does this actually mean? And how do you determine it? So make sure, number one, that it answers the question, and number two, that it is appropriate for your assignment. So what does it mean when somebody says to use a scholarly or peer-reviewed or refereed even journal? The peer review process is when a group of experts in a field review a paper or article and determine the validity. If you're using a database and you limit your search to peer-reviewed articles, the database will do this part of the work for you. If it's a paper journal, examine the journal. If it's peer-reviewed, there's usually a statement in the beginning. If it's an online journal, not in a database, you can search the official website, and if the journal is peer-reviewed, it will be stated. And this is an example from one of our databases, and it says right here, peer-reviewed journal. The next thing you're going to think about is authority. You're going to look at the author and the publisher. So for the author, you're going to review the author's credentials. Does the author hold a college degree in this subject? Have any relevant field experience in the subject area? Or maybe they've written in the subject. So where are you going to find this information? Title page of a book usually lists the author and their credentials. For articles, look at the top of the article or the end of the article. And for web pages, look at the top or bottom of the page, and that will give you most of the information that you require. This is an example of a web page, and you can see right here the author gives their credentials and also where they are currently employed. Publisher. So you're going to look and see who the publisher is. Is it commercial, trade, maybe a college press? What is the company's reputation, and what are the company's goals and values? Why would you need to actually answer those questions or think about that? You need to, because sometimes companies have a particular goal in mind, or it is a part of their company's purpose to persuade people to a particular view of a topic. So that really affects whether or not what they're publishing, it affects whether or not it can be considered valid. So where are you going to find this information? For the most part, the company's webpage. So if you look at this particular organization, it lists in the About Us page all kinds of information about them and what their purpose is. So make sure you think about who the publisher is as a part of that authority. Objectivity. It's very important when you're doing research, especially if you're doing research about a controversial topic, that you make sure that the source that you're consulting is objective or does not have bias. How do you do this? You're going to do this by looking at and examining whether or not both sides of an issue are presented. If there's an obvious commitment to a point of view, then it's going to be biased. Is there an attempt to persuade you to a particular viewpoint? If this happens, it's definitely biased. Does the author acknowledge any possibility of his or her own bias? And does the author include resources as evidence to support their conclusion? Do they have a works cited page? Where do you find this sort of information? This information can be determined by skimming the resource and looking at the citations included with the research at the end of the sources. And the other thing that you can do is, like in this example here, we have our references page here. It's your works cited. And we also have a statement of competing interests. Many different types of journals will request that if a person could possibly have a bias, then they go ahead and express what that might be. In review, currency, these are the steps that you're going to follow for evaluation of sources first. Currency, is the source recently published? Is it necessary for your topic to have a recent source? An example is in history. It might be okay to use an older source, but science or medicine have to be within the most recent 5 years. Relevancy, does this source add context or background for your topic? Does it meet the assignments for your topic, and does it answer your research question? If it does, that's great. You can use it. If it does not, then you're not going to want to use it in your research. Authority. Who is the author and or publisher? What are the author's credentials? Who is the publisher and what are their reputation? Purpose. Are both sides of the controversial topics covered? Is there an attempt to persuade readers? If there are, then this source could be biased and you're not going to want to use it in your paper. Are there facts given to support the argument? Do they have a works cited page? If they don't, then you might not want to use it. When you are doing research, make sure that you think about a resource critically before you use it in your assignment.